Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our distinguished participants and panelists joining us from across Africa and the world, and a happy Ombudsman Month to you all. Allow me to first observe protocol and acknowledge Honorable Ombudsmen and mediators, representatives of national human rights and oversight institutions, members of the diplomatic community, academia and civil society, our esteemed speakers and facilitators, and all colleagues and friends joining us online today. On behalf of the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association and its research and training arm, the African Ombudsman Research Center, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to this webinar entitled Maximizing Impact and Reach, Strengthening the Influence and Scope of Ombudsman Recommendations. We are encouraged by the tremendous level of participation with 268 registrations representing 57 countries across 5 continents. This wide reach reflects the relevance of the Ombudsman institution as a unifying voice for fairness, good governance, and human rights. Before we begin, please allow me to note and to sincerely apologize that due to current budgetary constraints, we are only able to provide Spanish interpretation for this session. We regret that we could not extend simultaneous interpretation to French, Arabic, and Portuguese, as we ordinarily strive to do so. We are grateful for your understanding, and we remain committed to restoring full multilingual support in future AORC activities, consistent with our inclusive approach. Colleagues and friends, today's theme goes to the heart of our shared mission. The Ombudsman's authority does not rest on enforcement powers, but on integrity, credibility, and moral persuasion. Our recommendations, though, can shape governance, influence institutional reform, and make a tangible difference in the life of citizens. Across the continent, Ombudsman officers are finding new and creative ways to ensure their recommendations are implemented and not simply noted. This session gives us a platform to share these experiences, from strengthening legal frameworks to engaging the media and civil society, to developing monitoring tools that track progress and impact. We extend sincere appreciation to our distinguished speakers, Honorable David Bondia Garcia, Ombudsman of Barcelona, Spain, Honorable Odette Yankurije, Deputy Ombudsman of Rwanda, and Professor Tawale Mokwena, Health Ombudsman of South Africa. We also thank our facilitator, Advocate Busisiwe Mngoma, Ombudsman of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, for guiding today's discussions. To all participants, Ombudsman practitioners, researchers, and partners, thank you for taking the time to join us and for your continued support to AORC and AOMA. Your engagement strengthens our collective effort to build institutions that protect rights, promote accountability, and serve the people with integrity. We trust that today's dialogue will deepen collaboration and inspire us all to ensure that Ombudsman recommendations truly translate into meaningful and lasting change. Thank you once again, and a warm welcome to you all. It is now my pleasure to introduce our facilitator for today's session, Advocate Busisiwe Mngoma, the Ombudsman of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Advocate Mngoma is an accredited mediator and a member of the International Ombudsman Association, with extensive experience in conflict resolution, governance, human rights, and administrative justice. She has served both the public and private sectors and is well known for her work in promoting fairness and accountability through effective dispute resolution. We are honored to have her guide today's discussion. Advocate Ngoma, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marion. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and our honorable panel members. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. We are pleased that you've taken time from your busy schedule to tune in, and we appreciate your interest and support. As Ms. Marion has explained, my name is Busisiwe Ngoma, the current Ombud at UKZN. She has already explained the theme for this webinar. The webinar will examine how Ombudsman institutions can make their recommendations more effective in practice. It will consider how legal and institutional framework can strengthen compliance, how advocacy and public engagement by civil society and media can support implementation, and how external monitoring can help assess whether recommendations are leading to improvements in administration, governance, and the protection of rights. Our esteemed panel members are all highly accomplished professionals with impressive resumes. I'm going to briefly summarize their bios, but please take note of their biographies on the webinar invitation. Our first speaker is Honorable David Bondia Garcia, who is the Ombudsman of Barcelona. He has served as the president of the Institute of Human Rights of Catalonia, and as well as the vice president of the Human Rights Structure of Catalonia, and also a member of the Catalan Council for the Promotion of Peace. He has taken part as an expert in international missions with the EU, AECID, the Council of Europe, and the UNDP. He's the Associate Professor of Public International Law and International Relations at the University of Barcelona, and has lectured at universities across Europe, America, Africa, and Asia. As a jurist, he contributed to the drafting and the implementation of the European Charter for the Safeguarding of Human Rights in the City, advising local ombudsmen, the Forum SG, and municipalities. He was recently elected president of the Global Alliance of Local Ombudspersons. Our second speaker is Honorable Odette Yankurije, who is the Deputy Ombudsman of Rwanda, a position she has held since 2017. She served 12 years at the Ministry of Justice in senior roles, including Principal State Attorney and Head of Department. She also served 9 years as a commissioner at the Rwanda Law Reform Commission. She holds 2 master's degrees, one in international business law from Queen Mary University in London, and another in public administration, and also known as public management, from the National School of Public Administration of Quebec in Canada. She also earned a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Rwanda. In addition, she obtained a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from the Institute of Legal Practice and Development in Rwanda, and a diploma in mediation from Edward Mediation Academy in the USA. Our last speaker is Honorable Professor Daule Mukwena, who is our health ombud in South Africa. He's a medical graduate of the University of Natal and has a Doctor of Philosophy from Oxford University. He's a retired professor and the head of the Department of Surgery at the University of Pretoria. He continues to engage in teaching and research on a part-time basis at the University of Pretoria Medical School. So the order of proceedings today, each panel member will have 10 to 15 minutes to present in-depth insight on their respective topics. I will manage the transitions. At the end of their presentations, we'll have a 25-minute interactive Q&A session. I will thereafter summarize, closing, and hand over to our host, Mrs. Marion. Just let me remind you of the house rules before we start. Please don't forget to mute your microphone if you are not already muted. If you have a question, please raise your hand and wait to be called. Keep the question short and concise. If you have something to contribute, please type it in the chat box. So without further ado, let me hand over to our first speaker, Honorable Bondia Garcia. His presentation is titled Legal and Institutional Strategies for Strengthening Ombudsman Recommendations, Exploring Legal Frameworks and Mechanisms to ensure greater compliance. Over to you, sir.
Muchas gracias por la invitación. Muchas gracias también por la traducción en español. Y para nosotros desde Barcelona es un honor poder participar en el webinar que han organizado ustedes. Un poco para situarnos y para entender un poco lo que llegaré al final a explicar. Nosotros somos una defensoría que lo que hace es supervisar el funcionamiento del Ayuntamiento de Barcelona, Barcelona con una población en Barcelona, en Cataluña, en el Estado español, con una población estable residente de 1.700.000 personas, pero que cada día circulan por Barcelona 2.700.000 personas. Es decir, recibimos 1.000.000 más de las personas que residen. Nuestra competencia es hacia las personas que residen en Barcelona, pero también que transitan por Barcelona. Para poder llegar a fortalecer el alcance en nuestras resoluciones, creemos que tuvimos que fortalecer inicialmente nuestra forma de actuar. Nuestra forma de actuar fue un poco organizar ab initio cuál era nuestra competencia y cuál era nuestro marco de actuación en cuanto a los derechos a garantizar. Y es ahí donde encontramos que nosotros somos una sindicatura de ámbito municipal, y encontramos que era necesario fundamentarnos en el derecho a la ciudad, definir lo que entendíamos por derecho a la ciudad, porque entendemos de este derecho a la ciudad un derecho multifacético y un derecho con muchas perspectivas y muchas capacidades. Y a partir de este derecho a la ciudad, ver que nuestro marco de transformación era dejar de trabajar por materias y pasar a trabajar por la afectación de derechos. Es decir, identificar muy claramente cuáles eran los derechos que estaban siendo afectados. Y por eso insistimos en este concepto que también proyecto en esta diapositiva, que es el de derechos humanos de proximidad. Nosotros lo que insistimos es que el ámbito de los derechos humanos, la administración más cercana, es la que debe cubrir estos derechos. Y es ahí donde incidimos en estos derechos humanos de proximidad, y lo que hicimos es identificar estos derechos humanos de proximidad y ver que los podíamos definir o diferenciar en 4 ámbitos de ciudad: la ciudad equitable, la ciudad habitable y sostenible, la ciudad garantista y la ciudad diversa, teniendo una perspectiva interseccional. Es decir, partimos de este cambio de actitud, y sobre todo el cambio lo que implica es, como os he dicho al principio y como he señalado al principio, dejamos de trabajar por materias y pasamos a trabajar por la afectación de derechos. Un ejemplo sería que hasta ahora a cualquier defensoría que le entra una queja sobre un contenedor de basura va a la materia limpieza. Nosotros lo que acabamos deduciendo, no, este contenedor de basura puede afectar de diferente manera a las personas que plantean una queja. Puede afectar a la movilidad, puede afectar a la salud, puede afectar al ruido, y por eso identificamos todos estos derechos humanos de proximidad. Y ahí tenéis el gráfico, el mapa de la ciudad equitable, qué equitativa, qué derechos se corresponden, la ciudad habitable y sostenible, qué derechos se corresponden, la ciudad garantista también con los derechos que corresponden, y la ciudad diversa con los derechos que corresponden. Todo esto con una perspectiva interseccional, porque entendemos que hay desigualdades o diversas desigualdades que pueden atravesar a una persona. Por ejemplo, no es lo mismo una persona sin hogar que duerme en la calle, si es hombre, si es mujer, si tiene problemas de diversidad funcional, etcétera, etcétera. Por lo tanto, esto hay que tenerlo en cuenta. Este marco general lo que nos permitió es abordar y ver que nuestras formas de intervención tienen que modernizarse. Modernizarse en el sentido que entendemos que las defensorías de derechos humanos, ya sean locales, ya sean autonómicas, ya sean estatales, no se pueden quedar solo con la perspectiva de de recibir quejas. La queja es importante para nosotros y somos, como veis en el primer icono, tramitamos quejas, pero hay que aumentar y hay que extender nuestras tipologías de intervención. Y por eso lo que hacemos también son actuaciones de oficio, mucha presencia en el territorio. Lo que no queremos es quedarnos solo siendo una oficina, sino lo que hay que ser es extendernos en el territorio y ir a ver los problemas realmente, y no solo que nos vengan las personas y que presenten quejas. También las actuaciones de oficio, la idea de posiblemente no nos entre una queja, pero percibimos que hay una situación que puede afectar de forma generalizada a determinadas personas o colectivos, actuamos. Por ejemplo, ahora estamos iniciando, luego explicaré varias actuaciones de oficio en las preguntas, pero estamos iniciando una sobre los comederos sociales, es decir, las personas que se encuentran en situación de vulnerabilidad que van a comedores sociales. Lo que entendemos nosotros es que el comedor no tiene que ser solo facilitar alimentación, sino ser social. Por tanto, que la gente pueda convivir entre ellos. Estamos haciendo una actuación de oficio que acabará siendo una monografía, un estudio. También hay que fomentar desde las defensorías la resolución alternativa de controversias. Muchas veces la defensoría lo que puede hacer es, en una controversia entre la administración y los administrados, podemos intervenir y podemos aportar algún tipo de solución. También siempre se ha creído que cuando se aplica una normativa de forma incorrecta es cuando podemos intervenir. Creemos que nos podemos avanzar en el sentido de hacer dictámenes. Cuando vemos que se está elaborando una normativa y esta normativa puede suponer vulneración a determinados derechos, opinemos antes de que, o hagamos una opinión antes de que se elabore esta normativa para incidir en mejoras en la normativa, que esto nos ha pasado, y también grupos de trabajo, actuaciones en universidad y también un diálogo continuo con la administración. Nosotros fiscalizamos a la administración, pero también colaboramos con la administración. Importancia de lo que he señalado anteriormente del mapa de los derechos es que en una misma resolución se pueden ver afectados diferentes derechos. Antes lo que hacíamos una resolución y había una afectación de derechos, hoy vemos que no. Y lo que nos ha permitido hacer la distribución en varios derechos y la protección de derechos es tener un indicador de cuáles son los derechos más afectados. Por ejemplo, tenemos que el derecho a la buena administración es un 20,1% de nuestras resoluciones, el derecho a una vivienda, a una ciudad habitable y sostenible, o el derecho al descanso es el 8,4%, y con respecto a una ciudad equitable, el derecho a la vivienda es el 6,7%. Pero a título de ejemplo, para que vean, es que, por ejemplo, si molestias vecinales pueden afectar a dos tipos de derecho, que es el derecho al descanso o al derecho a una convivencia pacífica, o las situaciones administrativas relacionadas con la movilidad pueden afectar a la movilidad o pueden afectar a la buena administración. Por eso, el marco de partida es importante, porque este marco de partida nos permite llegar donde queríamos llegar y lo que queríamos presentar. Nosotros hacemos unas recomendaciones que no son vinculantes y que lo que hacemos es que requerimos un retorno por parte de la administración. Al tener claramente cuáles son los derechos afectados, a quién nos dirigimos y ver cómo nos tenemos que orientar, lo que podemos hacer es anualmente ver cuál es el grado de aceptación de las recomendaciones que hacemos por parte de la administración. Y vemos que, no siendo vinculantes, este año o el año pasado, el año 2024, el grado de aceptación fue un 75,6%, las no aceptadas un 7,22% y las que no estaban definidas un 17,18%. Por tanto, las aceptadas, hacemos una recomendación a la administración nos dice que acepta esta recomendación que le hacemos y hacemos un seguimiento de a ver cómo lo va a cumplir y en qué plazo lo va a cumplir. Por tanto, es importante no solo hacer la recomendación para fortalecer nuestras resoluciones y nuestra forma de actuar, no solo hacer la recomendación, sino hacer un seguimiento del cumplimiento de esa recomendación. Pero a mí me parece que también es muy importante hacer un seguimiento de las no aceptadas. ¿Por qué? Porque nos dicen por qué no aceptan esa resolución, no aceptan esa recomendación, y normalmente es porque hay obstáculos burocráticos que impiden implementar la recomendación que se ha hecho desde la Defensoría de Derechos Humanos de Barcelona. Entonces, lo que tenemos que hacer es hacer un seguimiento para ver cómo remover esos obstáculos burocráticos para poder cumplir con esas resoluciones. Entonces, estamos bastante orgullosas de nuestras resoluciones y el grado de implementación, porque hemos podido, haciendo el trabajo anterior, dejando de trabajar por materias, pasando a trabajar por la afectación de derechos, ver cómo se cumplen estas recomendaciones. Y aquí ahora haré dos incisos importantes. También nuestra forma de trabajar. Nuestra forma de trabajar bebe de tres premisas básicas. La primera premisa, y por eso podemos llegar a este grado de aceptación, es que no trabajamos con conflictos. Para nosotros, lo que pasa en la ciudad, lo que pasa entre la administración y la ciudadanía, son retos, son problemas. ¿Por qué no trabajamos con conflictos? Porque el conflicto lo que implica es que hay un ganador y un perdedor. Nosotros los retos, las problemáticas, las abordamos como posibles situaciones que requieren soluciones. Por tanto, el conflicto lo que ve es que se encalla. Nosotros lo que vemos es problemas que van a aparecer siempre en las ciudades, siempre en los ámbitos territoriales, y esos problemas requieren soluciones. Nosotros, en lugar de prender el fuego de los conflictos, lo que hacemos es alimentar el imaginario de las soluciones. Y por eso, abordándolo como problemas con soluciones, podemos hacer recomendaciones que sean muy imaginativas. La segunda premisa es que no trabajamos desde la prevención. Prevención y digo no prevención, sino que dice es que problemas en nuestros ámbitos siempre van a existir. Siempre van a existir. Estos problemas, lo que hay que hacer es dotarnos de herramientas para cuando surjan los problemas, poder abordarlos y poder tener instrumentos para ayudar al ayuntamiento, para ayudar a la administración y a la ciudadanía para abordarlos. Y finalmente, he dicho al principio que trabajábamos con el derecho a la ciudad, pero también con el deber a la ciudad. Apelamos a la corresponsabilidad. Apelamos a que muchas veces lo que hay que hacer es corresponsabilizar a la ciudadanía para el cumplimiento de los derechos humanos de proximidad, sobre todo porque nos encontramos que la ciudadanía, con diversos valores, con diversas realidades, conviven durante el mismo tiempo, en el mismo espacio, y ahí pueden generar roces, problemas, y lo que apelamos es a la corresponsabilidad para que no se agraven la problemática que puede surgir. Y otra previsión que tenemos es el tema de cómo nos definiríamos como defensorías. Y yo creo que lo extendería a cualquier defensoría que está aquí presente en esta sesión de hoy. Podemos definirnos desde un elemento de la química. Somos elementos catalizadores. ¿Qué quiere decir ser elemento catalizador? Que nuestra función, nuestra forma de actuar, nuestras recomendaciones, ¿qué pretenden? Pretenden eh, mm, pretenden provocar una reacción sin necesidad de aparecer en el resultado. ¿Por qué? Porque muchas veces sí que hacemos recomendaciones y cambian determinadas políticas públicas y cambian formas de actuar desde el ámbito de la administración y no reconocen que ha sido gracias a nuestra recomendación, pero a nosotros nos debe ser igual. Nosotros debemos provocar reacciones sin necesidad de aparecer en el resultado. Y esto comporta que también ha cambiado nuestra forma de ver el impacto que tenemos, es decir, viendo el grado de cumplimiento, viendo cómo nos han ido siguiendo, lo que tenemos que empezar a plantearnos es cómo nuestra forma de actuar ha cambiado políticas públicas de ámbito municipal. ¿Qué impacto ha tenido nuestra intervención para mejorar la vida de la ciudadanía y ver cómo podemos ir más allá y mejorarlo? En este sentido, en el año 2024 detectamos 17 ámbitos en los que nuestra intervención había provocado cambios en políticas municipales. Nuestra intervención, por ejemplo, en solución de problemas concretos, podemos citar a título de ejemplo como unas molestias en un recinto que se estaba utilizando por la noche para jugar a básquet provocaba molestias en los vecinos. Bueno, recomendamos que se hiciera un uso responsable de esta pista de básquet, poniendo unos horarios para poder realizar la actividad y funcionó. También un tema que creemos que estamos especialmente orgullosos de esta intervención fue en un momento determinado, nos plantearon una vecina en concreto que se pusieran carteles de prohibido jugar a pelota a los niños en los espacios públicos y en las plazas de la ciudad porque causaban molestias. Y ella lo que veía es que esto era un agravio comparativo porque en su plaza no había el cartel de prohibido jugar a pelota y en otras sí, y por tanto iban a jugar a su plaza. Nosotros hicimos una resolución diciendo que había que homogeneizar, pero lo que era deseable es que fomentáramos el juego de niños y niñas y jóvenes en nuestra ciudad, fomentáramos la ciudad jugable y que permitiéramos que se jugara en todas las plazas, pero con responsabilidad. Hicimos una resolución en la que decíamos al ayuntamiento, y lo ha acabado haciendo, retirar todos los carteles de prohibido jugar a pelota, pero promover agentes de calle, agentes cívicos, para que alerten a niños y niñas, padres y madres, para que se juegue con responsabilidad en las plazas públicas. Y lo que hemos conseguido es una recomendación que soluciona un problema, y esta es la solución del problema, pasa por la corresponsabilidad. En este sentido, si veis, hemos detectado 16 ítems en los que ha cambiado las políticas públicas en el ámbito municipal, ya sea introducción de mecanismos para evitar la discriminación, mayor inclusión de las personas con diversidad funcional, mejoras en los centros educativos, revisión de procedimientos administrativos. Incluso lo que hemos llegado es a pronunciarnos creando una comisión de reparación para casos de abusos, maltrato a niños y niñas en escuelas de la ciudad de Barcelona, cuando estos maltratos ya habían prescrito. Es decir, cuando se denunciaban unos determinados...
Garcia, your time is up. Thank you.
Ok, I finish. Cuando se denunciaban unos determinados abusos sexuales y conseguimos que se creara una comisión de reparación para hacer frente a estas situaciones. Por tanto, vemos que el itinerario ha sido la forma de partir trabajando con derechos humanos de proximidad y la afectación de derechos para llegar a los ítems en los que cambiaban las políticas públicas desde el ámbito municipal gracias a nuestra intervención. Agradezco la posibilidad que nos han dado de poder participar en vuestro webinar y estamos abiertos a cualquier pregunta posterior.
Thank you, Honorable Garcia, for this meticulous and incredible, insightful presentation. Just to sum up, the presentation focused on your framework and your interventions, as well as the percentage of rights affected, the implementation, the acceptance rate of your recommendations and their impact. I see there are comments on the side chat. Thank you very much for all the positive comments. Keep them coming through on the side chat. I encourage all of you to be interactive and share your views and inputs. So our second speaker, who also has about 10 to 15 minutes for her title, is Honorable Odette Yankurije. Her presentation is titled Advocacy and Public Engagement, the Role of Civil Society in Implementing Ombudsman Decisions, highlighting the role of media and civil society in enforcing Ombudsman recommendations. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, moderator, Honorable Ombudsman, here present, dear participants, all protocols observed. It's my honor and privilege today to share with you my presentation as highlighted by the panelists, the moderator, entitled The Role of Civil Society and Media in Implementing Ombudsman's Recommendations. As we all know, the civil society and media has a very powerful role in our society. As said that the media are the fourth power after the executive, legislative, and judicial power. So I think in order to save my time, I don't need to go through the role of civil society and media, as I know everyone here present know that law. These are the recommendations of the Ombudsman as highlighted by the predecessor, that these recommendations are not binding. So we have to find out how to ensure their implementation. And one of that way is the use of or engaging with the society and media. The role of civil society and media in implementing Ombudsman recommendations may appear in different ways. First of all, in monitoring and advocacy. Second, by raising public awareness and education. Third, by community engagement. Fourth, by independent reporting. It can be also done through legal and institutional support. but also by building trust between citizen and government. The implementation by civil society and media can also be conducted through collaboration with the Ombudsman Office, but also through promoting institutional reforms and by ensuring accountability and transparency, but also by providing feedback mechanisms. Last but not least, by publicizing Ombudsman's report. So let's go one by one on each different ways. By monitoring and advocacy, civil society organization and media actively monitor the implementation of Ombudsman decisions and recommendations. They can track whether public institutions are complying with the findings of the Ombudsman and pressure them to act. They can also advocate for the government to take corrective measures when there is non-compliance and ensuring that the recommendations are not ignored. Also, civil society organizations, especially those focused on governance, human rights, or public accountability like Transparency International, they track whether public institutions follow Ombudsman recommendations, and this is conducted by publishing compliance reports or by developing scorecards and indicators, but also by highlighting repeat offenders and or systemic issues. Civil society and media mobilize public opinion and lobby decision makers to take Ombudsman recommendations seriously through public awareness campaign or through petitions or protest actions, but also via advocacy with parliamentarians or government officials. With regards to public awareness and education, we know that some people may not be fully aware of the Ombudsman role, decisions, or the importance of holding public officials accountable. So, civil society groups can play an education role by disseminating information about the Ombudsman's findings, helping the public understand their rights and how the Ombudsman can help them. This raises public awareness and strengthens the relationship between citizens and the Ombudsman's office. With regard to community engagement, civil society and media are often more embedded within communities, and they can facilitate grassroots level participations. By engaging communities in the discussions about the Ombudsman's work, the organization can encourage citizens to report injustice cases, corruption, or maladministration, and ensuring that the Ombudsman's decisions reflect the concerns of the wider public. With regard to independent reporting, civil society and media groups can act as independent monitors of government behavior. Through public reports, media campaign, and other forms of accountability mechanisms, these organizations can highlight gaps in the implementation of Ombudsman's decisions. Their independent voice adds credibility and pressure on government bodies to fulfill their obligations. Civil society and media can also act through legal and institutional support. Civil society organizations, including legal aid providers, can help citizens and complainants seeking justice when Ombudsman decisions are not being acted upon. This is done through offering legal support or working alongside the Ombudsman's office. They can help ensure that decisions have real-world impacts. In some cases, for example, civil society group may take legal action based on Ombudsman's findings, especially when serious rights violation occur and the state fails to act. By building trust between citizens and government, civil society and media, we know that Ombudsman often serves as a bridge between the state and the public. So civil society and media help facilitate this relationship by acting as an intermediary, building trust, and ensuring that the public knows that complaints and grievances will be taken seriously. They can also help in making the Ombudsman's decision more accessible and ensuring that institutions are held to account in a way that align with the public needs. Civil society and media should work collaboratively with the Ombudsman's office to enhance the effectiveness of its work. This could involve providing research, conducting joint public forums, or helping to design better system for public engagement. Civil society's organization can also help the Ombudsman's office gather data on systemic issues, ensuring that its decisions are based on comprehensive evidence. With regards to whistleblower protection, civil society and media may help protect those who expose wrongdoing, especially after Ombudsman's intervention. We all know how whistleblowers are vulnerable, so we need a strong collaboration with civil society and media to keep these whistleblowers. Organization and media can also act. Indeed, often the ombudsman within public institutions in advocating for institutional policies or internal recommendations. Efforts, civil society is organizing long-term solutions that are now and transparency. Civil society is critical in it oversees are accountable. Vision are not only implemented, but also societies and media contributed to a council established to have it at national level, but also at decentralized levels, And at each level, the civil society is represented. So it's a time for us to discuss with all our stakeholders, public institutions, civil society, private sector, and we sit together and try to find strategies on how to address injustice and see how they are implemented and evaluate those strategies. When we find that they are not effective, we try to find others. So this is to show how we partner with civil society on what we do. We have also different MOUs with some civil societies organization, especially those working in justice sector. And this also helps us to better serve our clients who are the citizens. Civil society and media can also help in implementing the Ombudsman decisions through publicizing Ombudsman's reports. Indeed, media outlets broadcast, publish, and analyze Ombudsman findings, which raises public pressure on institutions to comply through news stories, editorial, and op-eds, or through investigative journalism based on Ombudsman data, or even through interviews with affected individuals and officials. This can also be done by repeatedly covering certain issues raised by the Ombudsman, for example, police abuse, corruption, but also by media ensure that topics stay on the public and political agenda. Furthermore, journalists often follow up on cases months later to check whether action was taken. This creates a culture of accountability.
You have 2 minutes to wrap up, ma'am.
Modern media includes social platforms where journalists and outlets amplify Ombudsman funding to wider and more diverse audiences. These are the challenges that civil society and media are having in implementing Ombudsman's decisions. I don't need to go in details for those challenges. In concluding, I can say that civil society organizations and media are essential partners in ensuring that the Ombudsman decisions and recommendations lead to tangible improvement in governance. By advocating for transparency, educating the public, holding institutions accountable, and collaborating with Ombudsman's office, civil societies, organizations, and media help to strengthen the democratic process and promote the rule of law. So I can conclude by saying that media and civil society are not our adversaries. Indeed, in some cases, when we see that pointing some wrongdoing, we can consider them as our adversaries, but they are our allies. So let us cooperate, communicate with them, and engage them in all our activities. Our joint effort will contribute to greater public participation. I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Yankureje, for this thought-provoking and engaging presentation. I particularly appreciated how you summed it up in your conclusion by actually reminding us that civil society and media are essential partners in ensuring that the Ombudsman's decisions and recommendations lead to tangible improvements in governance, because oftentimes we focus on legal frameworks and other mechanisms to ensure greater compliance, but we often actually lose sight of the role of civil society and the media. It was actually an interesting presentation. It is my pleasure to present our next and last speaker, Honorable Professor Daule Mokoena. His presentation will focus on measuring success, particularly as to what tools can Ombudsman institutions use to monitor the implementation and impact of Ombudsman recommendation. Professor Daule Mugwena, the podium is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Ngoma. It's good to be the last to speak, because most of what I wanted to say has been said already. So it means that all I need to do is just to pick up one or 2 points for emphasis rather than edification. So it's an just forgive me. I've got a slight technical issue here. Yeah. And I'll go and write out for that guy. It is important that we must make a distinction between the statutory ombudsman or oversight institution and the voluntary industry or organizational ombudsman. The presentation, therefore, will address only the statutory ombudsman. The ombudsman, by design, is non-judicial and not quasi-judicial either. Therefore, their recommendations are not fully binding. The primary focus of the ombudsman is to mediate between the aggrieved citizen and the organ of state at any level. By any level, meaning that it could be at a central level, provincial, or even municipal or local level. In the mediation process, the ombudsman may facilitate reconciliation between the parties. The ombudsman may recommend review of policies and processes that systematically affect or impact citizens negatively. Furthermore, the ombudsman can, on their own accord, without prior report or complaint, suggest review of policies and procedures that have the potential to limit or negatively impact on the citizens' rights. Given the non-judicial nature of the ombudsman, therefore, their recommendations are thus not legally binding and therefore not enforceable through legal pursuits. Now, the question is, how does the ombudsman ensure that their recommendations are followed and implemented? There are several strategies and tactics that the ombudsman uses in order to enhance and ensure compliance for their recommendations. Firstly and foremost, it is to get a buy-in from the affected organ of state on the process of the ombudsman, bearing in mind that the thrust of the recommendations is to seek redress and to avoid repeat transgression or infractions of the citizens' rights. Secondly, the findings and the recommendations are not only transmitted to the parties in dispute, but to the whole of the organization and indeed the industry. The ombudsman also briefs the political oversight minister or department. Thirdly, the ombudsman puts their findings and recommendations in the public domain, utilizing different mechanisms and media to reach the broadest audience as much as possible. Monitoring of the implementation of the recommendations starts with the requisite periods where the reports of the progress of the implementation by the state organ at intervals set out by the Ombudsman are undertaken. Ombudsman also has the option to investigate to ascertain the quality of the implementation of the recommendations. The media is an important vehicle not only to highlight the infractions, but also the recommendations and the recommended remedial actions. The media on their own brings the implementation of the remediations to the general public. The Ombudsman may use the media to disseminate both the successful implementation of the remedial process and, more importantly, its non-implementation to the voting public. My colleagues have already emphasized on the role of the media, as well as the role of the civil society, in other words, the public themselves, in the pursuit of the citizens' rights. And therefore, the implementation of any implementation or non-implementation of the Ombudsman's recommendation. The Ombudsman may also enroll another organ of state, including sister ombudsmen, to assist with both the monitoring and the enforcement of his recommendations. When the organ of state deliberately ignores the Ombudsman's recommendation, the Ombudsman takes recourse to the overseeing political office, or even to Parliament, depending on the gravity and the degree of non-compliance. This, together with the media dissemination, enhances compliance and the impact of the Ombuds's work and their recommendations. The Ombudsman may, as a last resort, turn to the courts to compel compliance by a recalcitrant organ of state. Already my colleagues have already touched on this, on the issue of taking legal recourse by the civil society organizations. But the Ombudsman himself or herself may, in fact, take legal recourse. There are examples of successful implementation of the Ombuds's recommendations are abound, certainly for the health ombudsman here in South Africa. One of the leading examples of the impact of the health ombudsman's recommendation includes life esidimeni, where families, where psychiatric patients were removed from institutions and put into communities, organizations that were, I would say, illegal and not suited for looking after psychiatric patients, whereafter some patients died. Now, in that instance, the recommendations of the health ombudsman led to the compensation of the deaths of families for the deaths of their loved one through a further judicial process. And the psychiatric patients were rescued from these illegal chronic rehabilitation facilities and went back into legal and formal hospitals or institutions or asylums. Furthermore, the implicated officials face criminal court proceedings as we speak. There are many other examples that we could look at, but in their nature, they have led to restitution and remediation of the infractions, or mainly the indifference up to then of the state institutions, mainly hospitals, in maintaining the infrastructure. In summary, therefore, the Ombudsman seeks cooperation rather than punitive litigation, and the compliance is by persuasion, and the recourse to the courts to seek compliance should be the last resort, where continued infraction is not only a denial of the citizens' rights, but also patently exposes the general public to harm. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you, Professor Mokoena, for this excellent and truly captivating presentation. And just for keeping on time, you've actually given us an extra 5 minutes to spend on questions. Thank you so much for that. In summary, there are similar themes in the presentations of all our speakers. What comes out clearly is that ombuds actually seek cooperation and compliance by persuasion. Professor Mokoena has actually highlighted the fact that the courts are actually the last resort when ombuds are seeking compliance with their recommendations. I also appreciate the fact that you've actually given us an example of a successful implementation of recommendations within the Health Ombuds Office, and also explained the monitoring of the implementation of recommendations, how that has been done in your office. And you also touched again on the important role of the media in the implementation of the ombuds. And I was particularly intrigued by a point that you raised with regards to the collaborations that you normally have with other ombuds to also assist in the implementation of the recommendations. So now we are going to move to a Q&A session. I also want to remind our panel members that you can actually insert your questions on the side chat as well. Before we take live questions from attendees, I'm going to give each panel member about 3 minutes to address some of the pre-submitted questions. Due to time constraints, I'll pick a few because we won't be able to cover all of them. Some will also be, I will also try and merge similar questions so that we can have a robust discussion. Okay, so the first question that was submitted, I'm not necessarily going to go by number. I've actually picked up the people that actually can give meaningful answers to these questions. The first one was question 19. It says, in Tunisia, the administrative ombuds makes important recommendations to correct dysfunctions in administration and governance, but their implementation remains limited due to the absence of a binding character. Which comparative models can be considered to strengthen the authority of recommendations and ensure their follow-up by government? Honorable David, can you take that question?
Muchas gracias por darnos la oportunidad de poder formularla. Es respecto a Túnez y disfuncionalidad por parte del gobierno. Y yo, el planteamiento es, ¿deberían ser las recomendaciones que hacemos desde las defensorías vinculantes o no vinculantes? Nosotros hacemos una presentación al público de nuestro informe anual y lo que pide la ciudadanía siempre es que nuestras recomendaciones sean vinculantes. Y nosotros defendemos que no, que mejor no ser vinculantes por una cosa básica. Al ser nuestras resoluciones no vinculantes, lo que nos permite es apartarnos de la normativa en vigor. Es decir, hay una normativa que debería aplicarse, pero igual posiblemente, como hay personas y colectivos que están en situación de desigualdad, la aplicación de esa normativa causaría un mayor perjuicio. Por tanto, entendemos que defendemos que no sean vinculantes, la no obligatoriedad, pero sí un seguimiento y un compromiso por parte de la Administración que todo y no ser vinculantes las van a cumplir. ¿Cómo se puede conseguir esto? Buscando una legitimidad por parte de las defensorías, tener un peso y un carácter que posiblemente el poder está en la Administración, pero nosotros tenemos que defender nuestra autoridad y nuestra autoridad se defiende asegurando el cumplimiento de estas resoluciones. La única forma de asegurarlo es haciendo un seguimiento, es decir, fijar indicadores para hacer un seguimiento. Recomendamos que la Administración realice este cambio de política pública. No podemos quedarnos solo con la recomendación, sino hacer un seguimiento e insistir en la Administración que para mejorar políticas públicas, si nos hacen caso, la ciudadanía va a poder ver transformación y transformar determinadas realidades. En el fondo, la Administración y nosotros perseguimos lo mismo, buscar el bienestar para la ciudadanía. Por tanto, yo lo que le diría a la persona de Túnez que nos pregunta y nos hace esta pregunta sobre las disfuncionalidades por parte de la Administración, que buscar una autoridad moral por parte de la Defensoría para que la Administración no nos vea como un enemigo, sino nos vea como un aliado para mejorar el funcionamiento de la Administración, sabiendo una cosa, que nosotros estamos al servicio de la ciudadanía. Por tanto, recomendaciones no vinculantes, pero asegurando un grado de cumplimiento muy elevado por parte de la Administración. Y esto es el instrumento de transformación que tenemos en nuestras manos las defensorías.
You
Oh,
are
I'm
muted.
muted. Okay. Thank you, Professor Garcia, Honorable Garcia. The next question can be taken by either Professor Honorable Odette Yankurije or Honorable Mugwena. It's question number 22 on the list. It says, what lessons can the Tunisian Ombudsman draw from the experience of Rwanda, South Africa, or Barcelona in strengthening the institutional independence and influence of ombudsmen? So this question goes to the core of the independence of the ombudsman institution. Thank you.
I would like to defer that to Honorable Odette.
Thank you very much for the questions. If I catch well, the question is to know how they can increase their institutional independence and influence based on the experience of Rwanda. I think, first of all, the independence comes from their legal instruments. I don't know what does their legal instrument says. Otherwise, the law establishing or creating the institution, our Ombudsman office, is the one which grants the independence of the institutions. Furthermore, the influence depends on the way you are doing, your decisions, your recommendations, how powerful they are, how you help the complainant, because sometimes the influence comes from your acts, the way you are doing, the way you are serving the public. That's the one which gives you influence. So it becomes from the decisions, the recommendations, your acts, but also from the legal instrument which gives power, or which gives the responsibilities, powers, obligations of your power, your institutions. For example, I can share with her or him our legal instrument, which provides the powers of our office and the responsibilities that we have. It's the one where we take or where we have from that independence of our office. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Odette. Professor Honorable Mukwena, there's a question which was listed as question 1, which says, what mechanisms currently exist to monitor the implementation of Ombuds recommendation, and how can they be strengthened? I think this question focuses on the mechanisms to monitor the implementation, whether there are mechanisms to improve those. I think you have already touched on this on your presentation. The question can also be paired with question 14, which says, what are exemplary experience in monitoring the implementation of recommendations and preparing periodic reports, highlighting the level of compliance and the impact of public policy? If you can match those questions and perhaps just have some input on that.
Thank you very much, Advocate. First and foremost is that in the instance of the Health Ombuds Office, by law, the monitoring is done by another office, which is the Office of Health Standard Compliance. So what the Ombudsman does is that we make the recommendations, and as well as to map out the steps by which we need those remediated, and that we want reports from those remediation processes at different stages of the implementation, and that the reports come to both the Office of the Health Ombudsman as well as the Office of the Health Standards Compliance. And then from time to time, either by invitation of the affected state organ, in our case, the organs are hospitals, or on our own, we visit the hospital to go and inspect the process of implementation. So that's what is there in law and in practice. Now, the part of that question is that how can that be enhanced? The enhancement would be if we can get sufficient funding, both as the Office of the Health Ombuds as well as the Office of Health Standard Compliance, so that we can have enough resources to undertake these follow-up inspections that I was talking about too. And in terms of the law, we don't really require any further legal process in order to make sure that our recommendations are being followed. I must say, though, that we have not experienced recalcitrant on the part of the hospitals, remembering that the highest or most severe stricture that we can apply is to debar the hospital from functioning, and if they persist not to, or if they ignore the remediations that we recommend, maybe debarring the hospital from functioning is too severe. What we mean is that element of the hospital function that is not up to standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mukwena. There's a question about best practices to ensure that Ombuds recommendations have real impact. What are the best practices? Anyone can volunteer to take that question. Professor Mukwena did give us an example of the Life Esidimeni, how impactful that recommendation was. So let's get from another state, perhaps Honorable Garcia or Honorable Odette. Can you take that question? Probably give us a best practice, how we make our recommendations impactful.
Sí, agradezco esta pregunta. Las mejores prácticas pueden ser muchas y también mejores prácticas que se generan desde nuestras defensorías, pero también la importancia de estos webinars que se están haciendo, que podemos compartir con otras defensorías para aprender de buenas prácticas de otros ámbitos. A mí me parece fundamental. Nosotros, por ejemplo, en la Defensoría de Barcelona, lo que hemos abierto es, dentro de nuestro ámbito interno, un archivo de buenas prácticas para ver qué es lo bueno que estamos haciendo nosotros, pero también de alimentarnos de prácticas que se están haciendo fuera. Les puedo compartir una de muy buena práctica que creemos que ha sido un acto pionero que se ha hecho en la ciudad de Barcelona, y antes la he mencionado, pero muy rápidamente, fue el hecho de atribuir responsabilidades por abusos sexuales que se sufrieron en las escuelas en los años 80 y 90, que han prescrito, que ya no se puede ir a la justicia, pero lo que no podemos dejar a estas personas son desamparadas. ¿Por qué? Porque ahora ya son adultos que denunciaron estos hechos no cuando quisieron, sino cuando pudieron, hicieron una denuncia pública y Fiscalía archivó esta denuncia. Nosotros entendimos que aquí había que hacer un acompañamiento y se creó desde nuestra oficina una comisión de reparación que les hizo un acompañamiento, y el 20 de noviembre del año pasado, del 2024, el Día Internacional de Derechos de la Infancia, se hizo un acto público en la ciudad de Barcelona donde las instituciones, el ayuntamiento, gobierno autonómico, la dirección de la escuela, pidieron disculpas porque hace 20 y 30 años no hicieron nada. Esto pudo pasar porque el ámbito institucional no hizo nada. Nosotros vemos que hay buenas prácticas también que estamos implementando, que estamos ayudando, por ejemplo, buscar parques infantiles inclusivos. Es decir, que en nuestras ciudades los parques infantiles no están adaptados para los niños y niñas con discapacidad. Había una de las preguntas que antes se planteaba, que estaba en el foro, que lo que planteaba era que cómo nos pronunciábamos nosotros sobre el tema de la discapacidad en la escuela, es decir, hacemos visitas a escuelas y universidades, si esto hemos tenido en cuenta el tema de la discapacidad. Sí que lo hemos tenido en cuenta este tema, por ejemplo, en el tema no solo de las actividades escolares, sino las actividades extraescolares. Es importante lo que el ámbito administrativo fomente actividades que estén preparadas para todos los niños y las niñas, niños y niñas con diversidad funcional y niños y niñas sin diversidad funcional. Y lo que sí que creemos, y esto es una buena práctica, que es verdad que las actividades extraescolares para niños y niñas con discapacidad son mucho más caras, pero lo que tenemos muy claro es que este sobreprecio no debe caer sobre las familias, sino que este sobreprecio debe asumirlo la administración o debe ser prorrateado entre todas las familias. Por tanto, lo que vemos es que hay importancia en estos aspectos. También Barcelona es una ciudad muy accesible, pero tiene margen de mejora. Tenemos que fomentar la accesibilidad en el transporte público. También vemos el tema de la participación. Es importante que sea una participación realmente por parte de la ciudadanía. Porque creo que es interesante lo que se planteaba de buenas prácticas, pero igual a partir de la sesión que estamos haciendo ahora, podríamos iniciar un compartir o un banco de buenas prácticas en que todas las personas y todas las defensorías que estamos conectados pudiéramos compartir estas buenas prácticas para alimentarnos mutuamente, para mejorar la vida de nuestra ciudadanía.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Garcia. We will be getting to the online questions shortly, but let's address just two more questions. Question 15 and 16. Any one of you can take those. Are there indicators or measurement tools available to assess the success of Ombudsman recommendations in achieving concrete changes? 16 can be meshed with that one. Also, it talks about software that can be used by Ombudsman offices for data collection, monitoring, and analysis. Can anyone take that question from our panel members?
Let me take the first one regarding the tools to measure the effectiveness of our recommendations or performance. For example, here in Rwanda, our office itself conducts monitoring to see how our decisions are making changes to the society. But also we have an oversight body, which is the Rwanda Governance Board, which conducts on annual basis its surveys and research, especially on what is called the Rwanda Citizen Report Card and the Rwanda Governance Scorecard. Through these surveys and research, they make survey in the whole country by trying to ask. They have some questions, especially on the one relating to the Office of the Ombudsman. For example, they ask, how do you find the performance of the Office of the Ombudsman? How satisfied are you with its work? So from this ranking, we can see how we are performing, where to make improvement, because our customers, the citizens are the one to rank how they see what we are doing. So through this citizen report card and the Rwanda Governance Scorecard is a tool which helps us to know how we are performing, where to improve, which is conducted by an oversight institution, which is the Rwanda Governance Board, RGB. Thank you. But this is not done only for the Office of the Ombudsman. This exercise is done for other public institutions. The question that I said highlight even other services, judiciary, security, health, education, all sectors, including the Office of the Ombudsman.
Okay. There are 6 questions posted on the side chat. Before I get to those, we have raised hands. First is Mr. Lending Bondi from Gambia. And second is, I don't know whether it's a Mr. or it's a Miss Siddiq. Can Frankie unmute them in succession, please, to ask their questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Lending. You are muted. We can't hear you, Mr. Bondi. You are muted. You can speak.
Inte man question atam ni jam. Fo ye invite le do ka ni gam. Man mu ngi no nyaade man fo be fo mistake. Nda ko surprise ngam ne moy
Mr. Lending, we can't hear you. Please speak in English, Mr. Bondi. Okay, I'll mute him for now. I will unmute Nikki. You can speak, Nikki. I have unmuted you. You are muted, Nikki. Please unmute. Honorable Facilitator, we can move on. Maybe I will lower their hands and they will raise their hand again if they want to speak.
Sometimes we forget to unmute. Another question is, in case where budget constraints restrict significant activities of Ombudsman, which other alternatives we can turn to for financial assistance apart from the government fund? Panel members, any of you can take that question. Any volunteer?
Si quieren, les explico un poco la experiencia de Barcelona. Pues es verdad, dependemos de un presupuesto, pero podemos buscar otras líneas de financiación. Por ejemplo, en Barcelona lo que hemos hecho es abrirnos a otras líneas de financiación y por primera vez, que nunca se había hecho desde una Defensoría de Derechos Humanos desde ámbito municipal, junto con universidades y junto con empresas, lo que hicimos es presentarnos a un proyecto europeo de cooperación. Un proyecto que es innovador, un proyecto que se llama IDEM, y que este proyecto lo que pretende es utilizar herramientas de inteligencia artificial para aproximar el discurso de la administración, que muchas veces en España, y imagino que en todos los estados, es demasiado burocrático y lo que crea es un rechazo hacia determinados colectivos. Por tanto, lo que vamos a hacer es implementar una herramienta novedosa para llegar a un público que pueden ser personas migrantes, personas mayores de edad, personas discapacitadas, para aproximar este lenguaje de la administración. Pero con esto lo que nos ha permitido es optar a fondos de presupuestos de la Unión Europea para poder contratar personal para nuestra administración y también abrirnos a otras finalidades. También les avanzo que también, y creo que puede servirles, hemos también abierto fondos para otras administraciones. Vamos a lanzar un proyecto que es Barcelona, ciudad residencia de defensores y defensoras de derechos humanos. Es decir, aquellos defensores y defensoras que estén siendo hostigados, que estén siendo perseguidos en sus países, poder traerlos a Barcelona durante unos 6 meses, una estancia de 6 meses, poder desconectar de la situación de hostigamiento y poder venir a Barcelona y intercambiar con nosotros buenas prácticas en Barcelona. Y esto hemos obtenido fondos de financiación de administraciones que no es propiamente la administración local. Por tanto, me parece que igual como defensorías tenemos que aplicar la imaginación para nuestras resoluciones, pero también podemos aplicar imaginación para buscar fondos cuando nuestros recursos están siendo limitados.
Thank you, Honorable Garcia. Another question is,
Sorry, may I share our experience as well?
okay.
I think it's almost the same like the Barcelona one, because when our budget is also limited, we try to look for alternative funds, especially with our partners, like European Union. We have a project financed by European Union, which help us to cover a range of some activities which were not covered through our national budget, but also we cooperate with our other public institutions like the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Local Government, as well as the civil society organization. We organize joint activities, so those stakeholders can take a budget to cover such activities. For example, for us, we can provide staff, and for them, they can provide budget. So together, we conduct a joint activity, and it works successfully, especially outreach programs, awareness campaigns, and other activities. So we try to find alternative budgets through public stakeholders, other public organs, or civil societies, where we organize joint activities and we share costs, or they take in charge those costs. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your input, Honorable Odette. We have Innocent from Zambia who has a question. Can he be unmuted? Please, Frankie.
Advocate Ngomo, he's advised that he's having a problem with his connection. He's just sent a message through to me on WhatsApp. Thank you.
Okay. Nikki wanted to say something, and is Lending Bondi? They had their hands raised earlier on. Do they still want to speak?
Advocate Ngoma,
Yes.
Innocent's question he sent me via WhatsApp. He's keen to hear from Prof. Mokoena why it is important to differentiate between the statutory and organizational ombudsman. Thank you.
Prof, go ahead.
Thank you for that. It's important in the sense that the statutory ombudsman is what it is, and it is countrywide, or its role is defined by law, whereas an organizational one only limits its activity within the organization. In other words, the the recommendations are not far-reaching outside the particular organization or profession. I'll give an example. The Health Professions Council of South Africa, they have a medical ombudsman. Now the medical ombudsman confines with their activities within the Health Professions Council, whereas the statutory health ombudsman, the canvas is the whole country, and therefore whatever we find in one place, we on our own would go and see if this is systematic, and if it's systematic, then we make an overarching recommendation for remediation or correction of, or did I say correction, or remediation of whatever is systematically wrong in the healthcare system. And the health ombudsman, the statutory health ombudsman, is responsible for all of the health system, both public and private within the country. That's the difference.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mokoena. Your answer actually does help me also to make a distinction, because I fall under organizational ombuds. So it's quite an interesting answer for me as well. We have two more questions from the side chat. The one relates to slide 5. I think it's slide 5 of Honorable Garcia's presentation. It says Ombudsman intervention in schools and universities. Slide 5 shows Ombudsman interventions in schools and universities. Have issues that are specific to disability been raised as gaps in terms of access to education? This refers to curriculum access and relevant resources. How have Ombudsman offices intervened? I like this question also because it also applies to a higher education sector, you know, with regards to access to education and issues of disability. Honorable Garcia, can you?
Sí, muchas gracias por formular la pregunta y por el interés. Viene también un poco en relación con la diapositiva 4 que pasábamos de los ámbitos y los derechos humanos de proximidad y la visión interseccional. Es decir, nosotros debemos garantizar, debemos supervisar cómo se garantiza el derecho a la educación en la escuela y en la universidad, pero con una visión interseccional. Es decir, las personas con diversidad funcional o con discapacidad deben gozar de las mismas oportunidades que el resto de personas. Y aquí incidiría en el concepto de equidad. Muchas veces se habla de la igualdad. La igualdad no vamos a conseguir porque la igualdad lo que no parten las personas de la misma situación, sino vamos a hablar de temas de equidad, buscando que las personas parten de situaciones, de realidades, de capacidades diferentes, pero se tienen que asumir recursos públicos para poder conseguir un grado de satisfacción deseable para todos a nivel universitario. Por ejemplo, yo antes he hecho alguna referencia, cómo incidíamos también en el precio de las actividades. No puede ser que las actividades tengan un sobreprecio o un precio diferente para los niños y niñas jóvenes con discapacidad. Esto es completamente injusto e inequitativo. También no nos quedemos solo con el tema educativo, sino el transporte escolar es importante. Es importante que tengamos escuelas preparadas para atender a las personas con discapacidad, pero desde la casa hasta la escuela hay que fomentar que exista un servicio público que permita llegar en condiciones a los centros educativos preparados para las personas con discapacidad. Y también aquí es muy importante el tema de la formación y la sensibilización. ¿Por qué? Sobre todo nosotros lo que vemos es que en actividades que se han externalizado por parte del ámbito administrativo, es decir, la competencia es administrativa, pero quien presta el servicio es una empresa, lo que muchas veces se entiende que la administración no tiene ningún tipo de responsabilidad. Y nosotros decimos, sí que hay una responsabilidad. ¿Por qué? Porque la responsabilidad para prestar este servicio en equidad de condiciones a todas las personas es de la administración. Les cito un ejemplo muy rápido. Nosotros hemos hecho pública hoy una resolución en la que dos hermanos realizaban una actividad extraescolar que creaba una actitud disruptiva, que creaba malestar con el resto de compañeros. ¿Por qué? Porque había uno de los niños que tenía necesidades educativas especiales y lo que se optó por parte de quien prestaba el servicio es por excluir a los dos niños de esta actividad. Nosotros hemos intervenido y hemos dicho que no es la lógica, que si vivimos en una sociedad diversa, las actividades escolares y extraescolares tienen que ser diversas y lo que se requiere también es un grado de formación, sensibilización y empatía por parte de quien presta el servicio para que genere esta diversidad dentro de la sociedad. Un ejemplo muy rápido, y con esto acabo, un instituto en el que asisten niños sordomudos a ese instituto. Ese instituto lo que ha hecho es que en el mismo aula hay una profesora para los niños sordomudos y una profesora para el resto de alumnos. Y conviven y fomentan la diversidad. ¿Pero por qué? Porque hay esta previsión de esta convivencia. Si en este instituto hay esta previsión, entendemos que en todas las actividades debería haber esta previsión para poder vivir de la ciudad diversa.
Thank you so much, Honorable Garcia. I don't want to go over the time that we've been allocated. I see that there are one or two questions that haven't really been answered as yet. Perhaps we can just take one more. I've been advised by Mrs. Adonis that some of the questions that were actually present and we were unable to deal with, answers I think will be posted on their website. Can you clarify that, Marian?
Yes, what we will do, Advocate Ngoma, is actually send all the questions again and the questions that have been raised in the webinar to all the panelists, and we would request that you please respond. And then when Frankie is posting the recording, he will post the questions as well as the answers. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you.
And I just want to clarify also that the question for Prof. Mokoena was actually not from Zambia, it was actually from Zetu Ngukulwa, Makamandela Ngukulwa. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but yeah, that question was actually from her. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we close the Q&A session, let's just take one more question because it's actually interesting. It says, it's from Zubeida Yusuf from, I think this person is from Nigeria, says, good morning. Is there a way the Ombudsman decision can be implemented in Nigeria without needing to use the police? I'm not sure what that means, but I would suppose it talks about the implementation of the Ombudsman recommendation in the absence of legal binding mechanisms. Anyone can take that question and then we close the session. Over to you, panel members. Anyone who wants to volunteer?
I'm not volunteering to answer because the question is very specific. It talks about a particular jurisdiction, which is Nigeria. And
Okay.
we don't know what the legal framework of ombudsman in that particular country is like. At least I don't.
I think that's a fair answer. Okay, so this is the end of the Q&A session. Before we conclude, I just want to take a moment to express our profound thanks to our esteemed speakers for their truly illuminating presentations. We are immensely grateful to you for your hard work and for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge, insights, and expertise with us. We truly appreciate your contribution. As we know, ombudsmen are sometimes referred to as toothless tigers due to their perceived lack of enforcement power and their inability to compel compliance with their recommendations. We can all agree that the true measure of our success as ombudsmen lie in being able to provide adequate redress and effect meaningful change. Today's engagements were critically important because they delved deeply into the fundamental effectiveness and methodologies we can use in our quest to protect citizens and ensure good governance and accountability. They also touched on the role of the media and civil society in enabling ombudsman institutions' effectiveness and impact. To our guests, this has been such a vibrant webinar. The feedback we received has been overwhelmingly positive and intriguing. Thank you so much for making this event enriching. To our organizers, you've done a sterling job. Thank you. And to everyone, we're gonna be having an Ombuds Day in the next few days. Happy Ombuds Day in advance. I now hand over to our host, Mrs. Adonis, to give a vote of thanks. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Facilitator. Again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone joining us online. Please allow me to observe all protocols already established. It is my honor on behalf of the African Ombudsman Research Center and the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association to deliver this vote of thanks at the close of today's webinar. We begin by conveying the warm greetings and best wishes of the Public Protector of South Africa and Chairperson of the AORC Board, Advocate Koleka Galeka, who is unavoidably away, but remains fully supportive of this engagement and of the continued work of AORC and AOMA. Our deepest appreciation goes to our distinguished speakers, Honorable David Bondia Garcia, Honorable Odette Yankurije, and Professor Twale Mokoena for their insightful and practical presentations. You have reminded us that while most Ombudsman recommendations may not carry legal force, they possess the enduring power of persuasion, integrity, and public trust, which compels institutions to act. We also extend warm thanks to our facilitator, Advocate Busisiwe Mngoma, for steering the program with professionalism and poise, and to the technical teams or behind the scenes for the dedication and precision. To our single interpreter, thank you for your valuable assistance. To all the participants, we appreciate your understanding regarding the limited interpretation capacity in this session. We would like to make special mention and extend our appreciation to the Ombudsman of Cape Town, Lesotho, Kenya, Tanzania, the Gambia, Stellenbosch, and the Solomon Islands, who joined us today. Your presence enriches our dialogue and strengthens our bonds of cooperation across regions and continents. We also wish to acknowledge three milestone anniversaries being celebrated or one last month and two this month. The Public Complaints Commission of Nigeria marked 50 years of celebration of service to the people of Nigeria, and the Public Protector of South Africa celebrates 30 years of protecting and promoting good governance. The Solomon Islands celebrated 41 years in September. These milestones remind us of the endurance, relevance, and transformative power of ombudsman institutions in safeguarding democracy. To all the participants from 57 countries across 5 continents, we thank you for your engagement and commitment. As we mark Ombudsman Month, we extend our best wishes to every institution represented here. May this period renew our shared dedication to fairness, accountability, and the protection of human rights. Before we close, we would kindly invite you to help extend the reach of today's discussion. The webinar is being streamed live on the AORC Facebook page. Please share the recording after the session to help spread the message and showcase the important work of ombudsman institutions across Africa and the world. AORC and AOMA remain committed to strengthening capacity, fostering collaboration, and advancing ombudsman excellence throughout the continent and beyond. On behalf of AORC and AOMA, thank you once again to our speakers, facilitator, interpreter, and every participant for making this webinar a success. We look forward to meeting you again in our next engagement, which is in November. Thank you and goodbye. Have a blessed day further. Bye.